Welcome to Colney Talk Podcast.
Hello, I hope your week is going well. You're listening to Colney Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Alex, with another byte-size. New listeners, welcome and thank you. And to my returning listeners to the show, glad to have you back. Arsenal hosts FC Zurich. As usual, I'll be highlighting my top 3 players who stood out in the game and the one player, the other guy, below levels in quality in the match. It was a very refreshing welcome for us to see Mo Aneni and Zinchenko on the squad, but it was really another dim performance despite the 1-0 victory. A very slow start, not my best experience as well, watching a very horrible broadcast, for the most of the first half. It was just really terrible. I think most of the fans just talks about it as well. I mean, everything just starting that first half was just horrible. Almost kind of trying to discourage you from watching the game, but that's not me. That's not most of you fans. And over time it got better, but that was just what we experienced for the most part of that first half. I was very interested in watching Sambi Lokonga, Reece Nelson, and El Neni really show up in this game because they were the starters for this match. My interest was to see Sambi Lokonga playing the Xhaka role, as how he would contribute as box-to-box midfielder or something in the likeness of contributing in the attack. It's only natural that we would make several comparisons as Xhaka, which isn't realistic because their levels of quality are not the same. The experience, how much of the knowledge Xhaka brings is nothing to what Lokonga is, but there is some level of expectation to say, okay, let's see what you can do. Let's see how much you can perform. It was just something that I think most fans were really looking forward to seeing, given that this was the role that he was playing alongside El Neni in the starting lineup. Jesus and Nketiah, they were dropping deep to pick up the ball in the first half. It was kind of weird, that way of their playing, because it kind of left, the final third or the box of Zurich kind of empty. No one really getting inside to make those penetration because they were really coming way deep to pick up the ball or contribute in the flow of the game. And I think this really was a very poor overall look of how the performance and how the game was flowing, seeing how we didn't have our scorers rather, Eddie and Jesus, really stay in that box, live in that box for the most part. Their movement and rotations really beautiful. We like to see a lot of that, causing confusions for the defensive line, not really know who to stick with. But dropping back that deep, not really good in my opinion. And even when we eventually got our rhythm, got our position or dominance into their box, it was quite a bit of a mess. We just got to that point, really couldn't execute, really couldn't shoot so much. Yes, there were low block shots and things like that, but I mean, that sharpness that we were looking for wasn't there again. And yes, as I said, the just overall performance in this game was really poor. There wasn't much to talk about. Arsenal did give FC Zurich a good amount of pressure as we possessed much of the ball, and we tried to impose ourselves, but we didn't do that much of an input in a position. Our passing rhythm wasn't there. It wasn't up to the standard that we usually expect. Looking for more of how we would make that flow exist or sort of grow with intensity. It didn't really materialize, but I think again these are things that add to the list of the expectations that we wanted to see and assess it as a very good performance. None of that showed up. Nothing to really look in that area. Tierney taking no prisoners on the ball, making things happen. Early in the second half, not much changed in the level of quality. There were needs of substitutions, not for resting players, but just to maybe improve what was happening. Because I've said this before in previous podcasts of how certain changes might help improve or lift the team, but that didn't happen. And as I mentioned, I kept a close eye on Nelson, Vieira, and Lokonga. I thought they would seize the opportunity to level up in the game, but it was just all falling flat. There were even chances. There were a few close chances, but There was nothing they were able to do to get it done. Yeah, I mean, that just really sums up most of how we played in the game. But as I usually talk about my format, my top three players, I'll just start off with Tierney. He was the player that jumped out at you in this game. I think most people will say the same thing. What a thunder strike, for that only goal in the game. He just kept playing like he had something to prove. He kept raising his intensity. He really was one of the few players, just a very handful of players in the Arsenal side that kept his level of intensity. He contributed a lot. This intensity that Tierney brings is as a consequence of competition in his position, and he continued to contribute in the attack with close chances in the box, linking up with Nketiah, and that was just such a good thing to see. But again, it didn't carry on to have other players get into the flow, losing the ball, not really staying and having that ownership in their final third or in the boxes and making things happen. Tierney did quite a lot of that, and he was that first player that really stood out. The second player for me, Big Gabby, solid at the back. He had very good passing connection with Tierney and Mo El-Neni. He closed down open spaces in the box, and more importantly, he made smart decisions with the ball when he was under pressure. This is what we want to see. This is the Big Gabby that we know, or we continue to support to improve in his decision making and not making rash decisions, not being like in a panicky mode of doing something that will cost us more rather than just trying to play it safe. And I knew he has it in him. It's good to see we're looking more from him because he does a lot, and he did do quite a lot to close down open spaces, close down players that were in the box. You can see how much he was contributing, and he was one of the few stand-up players, in my opinion, but as I saw in the game throughout, that really made him at least be one of the top three players. And my last player, Ramsdale, good saves, handled several shots in the game. His work in the game kept us in the advantage, not without his own shaky moments, but there was just few shaky moments. We didn't play well enough. This is not as one particular situation of the defense dropping their quality or maybe not, staying alert in moments where they just were ball watching. No, there was just an overall performance, and as such, these opportunities that FC Zurich had to really rely on Ramsdale's qualities and how he was good in blocking shots and blocking most of these, vulnerabilities that were really coming around us. So that, at least to me, makes him one of my top three players. He's my third guy in this game. And my other guy today, as I mentioned, looking at the few players that I thought would step up, was Lokonga. Very, very pedestrian in this game. He was supposed to be the one trying to affect most of our flow from the midfield to our front players. Didn't do much of that. The safe plays that he would do is what Mo El-Neni has done in the past and what he typically does. But Mo El-Neni, we know, again, he over time he can do much more. But the role that he was playing and what Lokonga was playing as a Xhaka role, I think that's the number 8 role, was something completely different. He needed to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more open, do things to contribute in the game, but he was not doing that. Such a very disappointing game, in my opinion. He didn't show any of the good qualities in the game. I don't believe he was the right sub. I mean, he didn't get subbed, so a lot of the time, I had that anticipation to see a glimpse of the attacking potential from Lokonga, but there wasn't anything. Not a great showing by him, and to me, that makes him the other guy in the game. He just did not do what we at least were hoping to see him do as far as contributing in the front. In the midfield as well, trying to do much to connect with Vieira, and that didn't happen. Vieira did most that he could in the game, but this is for the player that lacked that quality. It was Lokonga to me, and that was just pretty much it. So, folks, my top 3 players, Tierney, Big Gabby, and Ramsdale, and then the other guy, Lokonga. And, such a big disappointment for him. And I'm sure there will be several conversations to kind of like see if we can give him another chance of what this role is for him from an attacking standpoint. And then there'll be several conversations to go on from there. But that is it, folks. This game, there wasn't really much to talk about. We won. We're top of the group. Clean sheet. Nothing else worthy of a discussion. And, that's a wrap for this bite size, folks. We look forward to a really big match against Chelsea. Until then, have a good rest of the week. Thanks for listening and see you in the next one. Take care and bye-bye.